Okay, we're here. We're doing it.
Week 2.
Is it? Has it only been 2 weeks?
It's been 2 weeks, and we are covering tonight chapters 5 through 8 with heavy rain. And we are so excited. If you're watching right now, it means that you are a replay viewer, and we are so excited to have you joining us tonight. Stick around. Me and Ashton are some kind of way. You will probably see us unfiltered. Look at that.
Bridget.
We can see who it was. Hi, Bridget.
We have a follower. I'm so excited.
And it's telling us the name of the person who commented.
that last time.
I missed that last time. Technology is hard.
The widgets aren't up.
So anyways, we're just so excited to be going with this. If you're watching, stick around. It's going to be a fun night. We are really excited to dig into these chapters. I really feel like the book is taking off.
Yes.
And
It is.
It's some good stuff. See, now over here I can't see that it's Bridget, but when the comments pop up there I can.
It's okay. This is why we have technology and we have our phones again. Okay. So if you see us looking at our phones, we're not texting our friends. We are looking at your comments. So
we are fully engaged with you, our friends.
Yes.
I'm trying. I forgot to turn my volume all the way down. See, here we go. Problems with technology.
I know, Mob Twins. Hello, Emily. I know, we matched. We didn't do that on purpose, but great minds think alike.
Yep.
So
it's what happens when you're friends with people for long enough. You start looking like each other.
I know, right?
It's some good stuff.
Okay.
So I fixed it.
In other words, we're going to talk about. Hey, Petty, don't judge me. Okay. All right. Disclaimer time. So we're just going to throw out the same disclaimers as last time, just a blanket covering. We are not sponsored by Chris Valentin, and we do not endorse this book. We are simply here to have a lively discussion with y'all about what it looks like to, change culture. So he's going to throw out some really great ideas, and then there's going to be some things that maybe there's reservations about, and that's actually okay. So feel free to disagree. We are not, married to the content.
Who knows? A month from now, we could disagree with our own opinions. We are growing, learning people, and we give ourselves permission, and we give you permission.
Yes.
To grow and learn, and to not hold your opinion so tightly that you cannot change your mind.
Yes. And so we just want to say we don't want to see any offenses taken by things that we're saying. And I'm just saying, listen, I got here 30 minutes ago and we've already gone in 5 soapboxes tonight. So
we might preach tonight.
A little bit fired up. So just, we don't want to see any personal offenses taken. We're just here to share opinions and discussion. And we do want to see a lot of friendship happen. And feel free to give us a hard time because I'm sure you're going to have great content for that tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving into structure.
Yeah.
Should we talk about structure before we get started?
Yeah. So similar to last time, we are going to pose the chapter. We're going to give you a summary of the chapter. We're going to just talk about things that really resonated with us. If we had any reservations, we'll address those. And then we will pose a question for the chapter, in which we post it ahead of time, so you maybe already know what the questions are. But when we post that question, we will post it into the comments. And at that time, you can start replying under that question for all of the dialogue that goes along with this chapter, all of your comments, opinions, your answers to the questions, and that way we can keep it nice and orderly, and when we go back to reply later to things, we can just follow the thread really seamlessly.
Yes, it worked really well last time, so we'd love to continue that this time.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing we are going to change up a little bit is we felt a bit boring last time. It's hard when there's delays on our conversations and stuff. So what we're going to do is give briefer, is that a word? More brief summaries on the chapters, and then we're going to have more open-ended questions. So if you haven't read along with us, that's okay. I'm going to give you context, and then you feel free to join into the discussion because the questions are pretty easy to answer, even if you haven't read the book. So, yeah. With that, we want to make sure we're valuing your time tonight. So we're going to get started.
Here we go.
Are you ready?
Okay, Ashton. All right. Can you give us a summary of chapter 5?
Yes. Okay. Hi, Brian. Good to see ya. So, okay. Chapter 5. Chapter 5 was a really interesting chapter where Chris talks about the success of government structures and how they will either empower or restrain the governors. So, how the structure works with the people who are trying to put the structure into practice. And the three main factors he talked about to determine the success of that structure is knowing who is leading, who the people are that they're leading, so who's the shepherd and who's the flock. Mm-hmm. And then in what season they are leading in. So it's really important to take into account like what's happening in the world at that time with those specific people. Mm-hmm. He explains that I had a typo. That the church is in a transition time, and he believes that we are transitioning from a pastorate structure to an apostleship structure. So if you want to read more about like what those specific terms mean, that is all in chapter 5. But basically it's like fivefold ministry, more into a full unified body of Christ type dealio. So yeah. And I love how he ends the chapter by saying that we have to have the right amount of like every portion of that fivefold ministry. It's not one or the other, which I don't know about you, but chapters 1 through 4 definitely felt like he was all apostleship all the time.
Yeah.
And I was actually kind of worried moving into the book that that's all this was going to be, was like a pro-apostle book. But I was really relieved once I read these chapters, just to see him say that, like, oh man, no, you have to have the right amount of each one in order for it to all work together. So that was really good. Cassie, what did you have to say about chapter 5?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that really stood out to me was on pages 72 to the top of 73. It's about 2 paragraphs long. I don't mean to bore you, but it's really good content, so I'm just going to read it. It's easier than just summarizing it. So it says, the word apostle comes from the secular Roman world, and it means sent one. Roman apostles were not only sent, they had a very specific purpose. The Romans were aggressive about expanding their empire, and they wisely employed Alexander the Great's strategy in doing so. He established the Greek Empire by conquering kingdoms and then culturizing them in the Greek ways. Without establishing Greek culture, these conquered peoples would not have assimilated into their new national identity and government. Likewise, the Romans developed envoys to culturize their conquered cities in the ways of Rome. This is where we get the old adage, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Roman generals, called apostles, most often led these envoys with the commission that they bring Roman civilization into these territories. They were to transform the legal, financial, educational, and all other systems so that the new land would seem like home even to the emperor himself, should he decide to visit there. Through the labor of the Roman apostles, new territories became desirable outposts of Rome. It is interesting that when Jesus promoted his disciples from learners to leaders, he did not call them patriarchs. They would have had some ideas of how patriarchs led, as an Old Testament model for those was already in place. Neither did he call them to be priests, prophets, or rabbis, because again, there were patterns of order already developed for those roles. Instead, he called them by a Roman title that would forever define their ministry, responsibility, and authority. Like the Roman armies that first battled for territory and then educated the conquered people in the Roman ways, the apostles of Jesus were commissioned to displace the powers of darkness with the power of God and replace the enemy's authority with the government of God, bringing the influence of the kingdom ways into every aspect of society. So what I loved about this is just talking about how Jesus commissioned the disciples to literally infiltrate culture. Similar as the Roman apostles did, how they literally took the culture of Rome into new settled territories, and they infiltrated every aspect of culture, into government, into school, into the market, in every way. And that's how they made these new territories look like Rome. And I love that picture of like, that's what like the church is called to do and to be. We've talked about this in Sachem. I know Putty has shared this if you've gone through the course. If not, I just felt like that was such a great description of what it looks like to be called, like, you know, to live with this apostle type mindset. Another thing that really resonated from this chapter for me was that he described pastors as gatherers of people, and who really like are good at bringing groups of people together, gathering them teaching them, taking care of them, providing for their needs, spiritual needs, or whatever. And then apostles' job is to send people out. I liked how he said apostleships empower pastors to disciple healthy flocks that can then go into the world and transform culture. It's a partnership. Like, both are equally needed. You cannot have a good, you cannot have a healthy church if you don't have good pastors shepherding the people, and you also cannot have a healthy church if everybody just stays in the church and we don't actually get out into the world.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important point that he was trying to make in that, and that's what I loved about it, was just that, spreading the love throughout the fivefold, and it's not just one thing. But our question for you for this chapter actually goes with the top part where I was talking about the things, like you need to know who's leading, you need to know the people that are being led, and then you need to know the season in which they're leading. And that just, I just started to think about, like, man, do we know, like, what characteristics are defining our current season? Like, have we really put a finger on it? Have we stopped to, like, think about that? Because it's impossible to be strategic if we don't think through what this culture is looking like right now.
Right.
And I think, so we're going to post that question so that you guys can start answering them. But, I was just thinking about it for myself, and I posed the question earlier today in the group to see what you guys would say ahead of time, because I was having a hard time just putting my finger on it. Like, there were a lot of negative things that came to mind.
Right.
But it's easy to see that when you're kind of living in the thick of it. But then I think about the millennials and all the positive things that have actually come into our culture because of their creativity. And so there were some things that I wanted to give a shout out to that I agreed with. And, this is mainly speaking for America, because most of the people who commented were living in America when with this response. There were a couple people who posted from different countries, which was actually awesome. But for America, at least, we had a few point out that we are in a season that embraces individualism. And I spent some time, like, looking up what that means. And I just was, like, really intrigued by the definitions. And there were so many definitions, so you should look it up. And there's also, like, philosophy definitions of individualism. And, it's basically to this point that, like, do we get so far away from, like, what's best for collective society? We're kind of moving towards, like, what is best for the individual. And that's becoming the mindset that's the most common for our culture. And I thought that's really interesting, because that's really true. And what that's doing is kind of skewing our definition of truth. Because truth is becoming what's true to the individual, what's true for you, what's true for me. And we don't have a really great finger on the pulse of what is God's truth for the world today. So I thought that was, like, a really interesting thing that kind of kept me spiraling for a little while. And then, it's often causing this fear reaction where no one wants to share their perspectives or opinions anymore because they're afraid of offense. And I feel like that's definitely leading into all of that, like, because we're so afraid to, like, step on your truth, or my truth. They also said we are living in an instantaneous and instant gratification culture, and I think that is so true. And so often I am challenged with this when I'm talking with the Lord, because I'm like, I actually have to stop talking, and I actually have to wait, like, sometimes 10 minutes for him to talk to me. And I think, man, this is so hard to just listen and wait on the Lord. And I think that it's part of the culture that we've grown up in. It's like, we're so used to instant gratification. Like, where's my Jesus text message that's coming through the second I texted him,
Right.
So, and then the other thing is that we are the most connected we have ever been due to technology. And I think that is also just so true about our culture today. So these are really defining characteristics. When we started this On the Journey thing, we did it because we recognized the power of the technology tool. And we said, man, if this is something that's defining our culture, how can we use it for the kingdom? So that's being strategic, really. So What about you? What did you put?
I just have some interesting comments actually about what you said. I don't even think my opinions are that important. They're pretty much what you said. But I just have some
Everyone's opinion matters.
No, I mean it matters. But I basically said the same thing.
I want to read
but,
what other people are writing too.
Yeah, you read
you
it,
go,
so
and then we'll read.
Okay, so basically, first of all, I think it's okay that we see the negative things happening in our culture, because how can we come up with a strategy to solve problems if we don't acknowledge that there's problems? So as much as it's like, oh, we don't want to be like negatively talking about our culture, we do need to acknowledge what's wrong with culture so that we can,
It's true.
strategize the solution. So not that we're hating on our culture, but, there's a lot wrong. And then when you're talking about the instant gratification, literally earlier today, me and Ashton were talking on the phone, just as friends, about totally different things. We were talking about, and then it came back to On the Journey, and we were talking about how it's hard because both of us even struggle with the instant gratification mindset, and that it's like we set goals for ourselves for growth or metrics or things we want to accomplish, and we put so much work and effort and time into it, and then we feel disappointed when it doesn't instantly yield the fruit that we're desiring. And it's like we were just like kind of encouraging each other and ourselves that, like, you know what, like, as we went through this book, a lot of Chris's things that he was talking about were like initiatives that took years to see come to fruition, like years and years of investing into relationships with people in their city before they actually started seeing breakthrough. And I realized, like, I guess my mindset is like, okay, we're going to do this book on heavy rain, and we're going to learn all about how we can influence our culture, and then we're going to come up with some kind of strategy, and then like 3 months from now, we're going to see incredible things happen in cultural transformation because of the time we put in with this book. And that's just not even like at all like it's just nonsense. It's nonsense. It doesn't make sense, but that's just how I guess we just like think. And that kind of also, I guess some other points that I would have to this question is I see a lot happening with like hustle culture. There's been like a really big move towards like work as hard as you can, and you can accomplish any of your dreams. Anything you want to accomplish, you can if you work hard enough, you put in the hours, and you just basically enslave yourself to work. Now, don't get me wrong, like, I'm totally on board with working hard, but there's, it can just like cross into just some ugly territory.
And I love what Chris said in the book about that. Like, he was alluding to something else, but I think it applies here. He said, anything you gain by force, you'll have to maintain by force.
Yes.
And he said, anything you gain by
I know what you're talking about. I have it highlighted.
It was you'll maintain by God's favor.
Anything you gain, it is favor. Anything you gain through favor.
But I thought that was so good because there are so many times when we want to force things to happen.
Yeah.
Like, we want to force, all things on the journey to be successful the second we put them out there. But it's like, the truth is we can't do that. And we're not going to do that. We're going to wait for God's favor to be on something and see where God is moving, and then we're going to go with that. So,
and we're going to work really hard all the while. We're going to like give it our all and give it our best. We believe in excellence. We believe in hard work, and we're going to do those things. But we're also going to acknowledge that like we might not see the full fruit of it for a while to come. So
this is really challenging me because when you don't have instant gratification, in order to keep going, you have to have faith.
Yeah, totally.
And we're struggling in a culture that, has faith issues.
Yeah.
And maybe this has something to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, okay. So I want to look at comments. So I saw, I think it was Georgina, talk about loneliness despite being connected electronically. And I thought that was true. That's like a symptom of everything that we're talking about. So like individualism is actually isolating us in a lot of ways as well.
Right.
So really interesting how we can be the most connected and the most separated all at the same time. If you read any of Brene Brown's books, it's phenomenal on loneliness, shame, and like she ninjas that thing to death, and you'll never think the same about it.
Right. I think too, like there's like a cultural thing going on with comparison that leads to loneliness and isolation, because when you're looking at somebody's social media thread and you're just seeing how incredible they are, and you're seeing like this huge empire that they built wrapped around themselves and all this, like it's so easy to like compare your regular everyday life to that, and then you feel like you can't, like that just creates shame, like I'm not as good as this person, I can't, and it isolates you, it separates you from them, it keeps you out of a relationship with them, and there's just so much that
We came to the women's conference. We talked a lot about that. It was really
yes,
good.
we did.
Really good. Okay, we got to move on.
Yep, let's move on.
Okay, so chapter 6. Cassie, tell us a little bit about chapter 6. Guys, feel free to keep commenting on the post if you have great things to say. Of course, we want to facilitate conversation. So keep talking. We're just going to keep talking.
You can talk to each other about it, and we'll always come back at
We
the
just
end
want to keep
add
things
to the
going.
conversation.
But thank you. Yes, we're reading the comments, and you are all spot on.
Yes. Okay, so in summary for chapter 6, I felt like Chris was talking about ecosystems being the thing that produces and perpetuates a culture. He says that when enough people embrace a particular system of beliefs and live its principles out in their lives, an ecosystem develops. When this ecosystem is lived out long enough, it creates a culture. He then goes on to discuss the differences between being a thermometer, which is like being a person who is affected by the culture around them, versus being a thermostat, which is being a person who is helping to create a culture. And then he goes on to share some stories of how Bethel Church has, over a lengthy period of time, like I was saying, aligned with the ecosystem of heaven to shift the culture of their city in Redding, California.
Yeah.
So, Ashton, what resonated with you from this chapter?
Okay, so I think he summed it up in one really short phrase. And actually, this phrase has kind of been haunting me all day. You know how, like, Holy Spirit just, like, drops a sentence in your mind and you can't stop thinking about it all day long? Mm-hmm. So that's what happened here. He sums it up by saying, what we cultivate dominates. Mm-hmm. And it's so true in every aspect of life. Yeah. That is just a really great way to look at the whole ecosystem cultural structure, is what we're cultivating is going to dominate. And it really challenges me to reflect on what we are cultivating. And are we doing it strategically, or are we doing it reactively, accidentally? You know, we see something bad happening over here, so we're swinging wide to try to counteract it, and not realizing that what we're doing is dominating culture in a completely different direction. That's not necessarily a better version of what we were trying to avoid.
Right.
So, I don't know about you. I've just been trained by my lovely boss to just be strategic about everything in life. So I'm like, now I'm thinking, like, how do we be strategic about cultivating culture? You know, like, right. I need to have the wheel of success that's color-coded and ready to go. So, anyway.
With a presentation from Prezi or something, right?
Okay. We love you.
We love you. All right, I'm going to post our question for this chapter, all right, guys?
Oh, yes. So, yeah, I didn't have any reservations. I thought it was great. So, our question is, are you a thermometer, or are you the thermostat in your city? Are you a part of the ecosystem of heaven, or has your heart become the temperature of the city around you? I know what just happened. So, Cassie, what'd you say to that?
Okay, well, in all transparency, I feel like I'm really far removed from culture, with the exception of my engagement in social media. And I'm just being really honest in saying that. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm really active in my church. Most of my free time is spent with my family or with my church or my church family. So, yeah. I mean, it's like a little convicting because I'm not really out there changing the world all that much.
Yes, you are. Stop it.
Anyways, I just went on to say just that, like, I mean, I have a child who has special needs. And so we are frequently in doctor's offices, therapy appointments, having meetings with teachers and social workers. Like, I'm in regular contact with those types of people. But honestly, the agenda at the moment when I'm in those kind of interactions is my child. It's not, like, I hate to say it, but, like, my heart, my eyes are not always fixed on, like, changing culture when I'm in those moments. My heart is for advocating for my child and making sure his needs are met in those moments, which I genuinely feel like that's a call on my life. Like I've been entrusted with this sweet baby boy, and I love taking care of him and advocating for him. So I don't know, maybe just the way they see me advocate for my child, maybe that in and of itself is a way that this world sees me as different than maybe some other parents. Although I don't think that I'm really all that rare in how I love my son. I'm really entrenched in the special needs world, and I see other special needs parents and how they love their kids. And I don't think I'm all that rare. So I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think I'm talking from insecurity here. I'm just being
You're
really
not.
real, okay? Like,
You're not, but I'm offering you an outside perspective here and a word of encouragement. We are also living in a society that is embracing abortion. And so what is the percentage of people who choose to abort spina bifida children?
70%.
70%. And I'm just saying that you love your son well, and you are advocating for life and for that kids with spina bifida can have good lives because they have parents who love them.
Right.
And I'm just saying, like, I have to drive to Philo every day to pick up my son from school. And yesterday I was stopped behind the bus that was at her house, and it was like
dropping
a blizzard. And so I'm watching her and the bus driver get their son off the bus, and the whole time the thought that came to my head was like, man, you know, like, he is such a happy boy. He really is. He has such a good life with loving parents, and that's the thing that you show people in the culture, is that you don't have to abort children like this. Yeah. It's not all causes are lost. And I'm sorry, like, I'm not trying to, like, swing into that topic of conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, like, you have a powerful testimony and your life is an example of the choice to not abort. So Anyway, I just want to say that I did not plan to go there.
No, Jeff, Philo, Illinois.
I hate when I'm spontaneous like that.
It's okay.
But I love you.
No, I appreciate your encouragement.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay. So I really reflected on this a bit. And for me, the bigger question was, you know, what does it actually look like to be the thermostat? For example, you know, I have people in my life that honestly, like, they put on a happy face every day. They speak gently and they smile and they, like, speak the Lord positively around. And it's all just kind of shallow stuff. But to me, like, I know from seeing them behind closed doors that that's not actually who they are. Mm-hmm. And so while they might consider that being a thermostat, because in my mind and in my heart, I believe they think they're just being the thermostat. They're just refusing to be negative, and they're refusing to be anything but cheery and stuff like that. And there's such a delicate balance for me between what's being authentic and what's being positive. Uh-huh. You know, so for me, I wrestled to even answer the question, because I was like, what does it actually look like to be the thermostat? Mm-hmm. How does that live out? Well, so anyway, if you want to answer that question as well, feel free, because I am actually looking into that more, and really I've had, you know, some beginning conversations with God about it, but I'm going to go back to him on that one, because I think we'd all love to say we're a thermostat, but what does it actually look like to live that out?
Share your wisdom with us as you've navigated, you know, what that looks like in your life.
All right, and I want to look at what some people have said here as I went on my tangent. Brian said, come up with ideas that are based on the kingdom works, find ways to involve the church with local government. Oh, cool. Yes, and I see our church starting to step into this, and it's been pretty awesome. Yeah. Yes, so Jeff agrees with me. Seeing you love your child for Jesus' sake will have an effect on others.
I hope so.
Georgina, I agree, loving others well. I just think that's the best way to show Jesus in all situations. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Chapter 7. But yes, feel free to
continue the conversation
to me on that as well. I would love to know your opinions on what it looks like to be a thermostat. So, but chapter 7, let's talk about that. This is when I think it took like an interesting turn.
It did.
Yeah. In this chapter, Chris shares some really great ideas, and they all just kind of jumbled together for me. So I'll try to do my best, but I kind of feel like they were separate, but they also built on each other. Mm-hmm. So he was talking a lot about how transformation happens on the inside, and it's when people are exposed to new ideas on the outside. But the caveat of that is that people only embrace ideas in which they have the value, and they're only open-minded toward ideas from people that they have relationship with. So I'm like, okay, so really transformation starts with relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, you can trace it all the way back, and then it has a domino effect towards transformation. But really, the beginning thing is the relationship piece. And then he ends the chapter by saying the goal is to love people into the kingdom. So how do we, and then he poses this question, so how do we disagree with someone's sin and still sincerely love and embrace the person? I think this chapter really challenged us to reflect on how we are doing kingdom work in our lives. You know, a lot of us, I think, can get caught in the hamster wheel of ministry, of just like, I got to join this, and I got to serve over here, and I got to do that, go do that thing, and I got to, you know, like run over here and bring a meal, and it's all about works. And so I think for me, this was really freeing because I love relationships anyway.
Yeah.
But I think it really challenges us to just start with a relationship more than it starts with doing a million things.
Yeah, for sure.
What did you think about the chapter?
I'll have this one. I'm gonna try not to get preachy. This was the chapter where I was getting really fired up.
Keep it down.
I know. Okay.
I'm just joking.
No, I really feel like the conclusion of this chapter just really brought it home for me. On page 112, if you want to look at it in your book, I already have it typed out, so I'm just going to read it. He says this is my new strategy. Love people from the heart and do everything I can to bring out the best in them. It is a pretty radical idea, but I think it just might work. We must shake off the shackles of denominational mindsets and truly love people regardless of their persuasions. This frees the Lord to commission an army of pure-hearted lovers who can display the raw power of God and demonstrate the superior wisdom of another age without using manipulation and exploitation. He can then plant these warriors strategically in the darkest corners of society. I'm going to be really transparent in saying, like, in my upbringing, in a lot of churches, I have felt this constant driving force of evangelism. And I don't think the heart behind it's wrong. Like, we want to see people set free from the bondage that we're in. We want to see them come into relationships with Jesus. We want to see them come into the kingdom family. We want to see them spend their eternity with Jesus, right? Like, we do not want to see them go to hell. But so much of my faith in my upbringing was just like this driving force of like, every person's going to hell, and if I have any level of influence over them, it is my job to save them. And so I lived from that place in a lot of relationships. Now, I don't want to like negate some of that because I actually have experienced a lot of fruit in my life. I've had many friends come into a relationship with Jesus over the years. But it came from this place where he's talking about. It came from relationship. It didn't come because I was like power evangelizing them. I'm sorry, buddy. Just being honest. It came because I was in the public school system. So I had a lot of friends in the public school system who I was friends with, and we invited them into our family, and they would spend time with our family, and they would see how our family culture was different than theirs. And they would come to youth group with me, and they would come to things with me, and then they would give their lives to Jesus. And then I went into working in healthcare, and I had some friends in college that, again, it was like we were friends and we were studying together, and they would ask me questions about my life, and I would be really honest when they were struggling with things, and they'd ask me for advice, and I'd be like, you need Jesus. And then they'd come to Jesus, but it didn't come because I was like, it was because I had like a deep, meaningful relationship with them. And then like over time, like did all those people, like, did their lives powerfully transform like in the seasons that I was in a relationship with them? No, but I have like, even in the last like year, I've had a few of those friends reach out to me, like commenting about those seasons of life. And so I don't know, for me, it was just like, it was encouraging that like it's really okay to pursue relationship with people. Thanks, buddy. And I know that in power evangelism, it's coming from a place of love. that was just a very new model for me, and I am still growing in it. Like I'm still growing in what it means to, bring the kingdom in this moment and see somebody's life powerfully transformed in this moment when they're a stranger to me. Like that really pushes me outside my comfort zone, and it's definitely an area for growth for me that I'm willing to keep growing in. But yeah, it's not where my natural leaning comes from. I think because of the way I experienced evangelism in my upbringing, and I do kind of just have that mindset. Like I do see anybody who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus as somebody who needs a relationship with Jesus, and it's always in the back of my mind when I'm in a relationship with them. So that was kind of what resonated with me. Yeah. I don't even know what I all wrote here because I just went off.
Did you post the question for them to answer?
No, let me pull that up really quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want to give time for them to do some responses.
Yes.
But I'm very similar to you, Cassie. I really, really try to live out. So our question, let me back up. Our question is, what does it look like to love people without an agenda? And, I really, really tried to like think about this. And I got to say, this is one area where I feel like I try to do this every single day of my life with everybody because I don't feel, for whatever reason, I don't feel the bend towards the evangelism piece. I feel more towards the pastoral piece, I guess. And I think for me, like, I also know that I've been wrong so much in my thinking, like in the past. And I know that I'm a learner. So, like, I'm always going to learn and I'm always going to grow and I'm always going to believe things next year that I maybe didn't believe this year. So what that does is it kind of humbles me to a place where I feel like I should never like approach a relationship with anyone thinking I know their story, thinking I know that I've got to like go in and share the love of Jesus. My only agenda from the beginning has always been just get to know him and peel back the layers and kind of see where we're at. And if they invite me into a conversation about Jesus, like absolutely, I will be honored to take that conversation and steward it well. But I don't expect it. And, so for me, I think not having that evangelistic side it helps me do the loving without an agenda thing. Because that was never even a thing for me. Like my church didn't ever do that growing up. And like I said, I also just never assume that I know like what's going on in a person's life. So that would be my long-winded answer. Sorry. But what about you guys? What does it look like to love people without an agenda? I love to ask questions about what does it look like because we like to ask really big philosophical questions, but it's really hard to like see what it looks like walked out.
Yeah.
So anyway,
practical steps of this. Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of felt like I don't know what it looks like to love people without an agenda. I always have the agenda of Jesus on my mind. Like with somebody who's not a Christian, like it's always there. Like every conversation, every open door, like I'm just kind of always on alert. Not that I'm like trying to like beat them over the head with the Bible. Like that's not it at all. But it's just like if I'm in a relationship with somebody and they are expressing a need, how can I sit there and ignore that I have the answer that they need, Yeah. And so I don't know what it looks like to love someone without an agenda. And I don't know if I want to love them without an agenda. Like I don't hate this about myself.
Is this where we differ?
Am I closed-minded on this? Maybe. Like, do I want to grow in this area? I don't think so.
To be determined.
Yeah, we'll talk some more off camera.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't worry.
So you guys
I'll
fill
love
us
her
in.
without an agenda.
No,
and
that's not
then
even
she'll
true.
realize the
She's
error of her ways.
The thing is, she's loved me with an agenda for the majority. I'm kidding.
I have not.
She has.
No. I was doing life with you just like a normal person.
It's true for a while.
And then you came to me
with problems.
And then we
that
had
I knew
an
she
agenda.
could help me with.
But we both agreed to the agenda. So, just saying. Our friendship grew closer through the agenda.
Yes, it did. It definitely did.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, but we're running over a little on time.
Sorry.
As usual. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, chapter 8, though. We're
Chapter
at the
8.
home stretch. Here we go. Oh, and yes, I love what you guys are saying. I have been following along. Georgina, I agree. It is hard. It is so hard, especially when, like, the love of Jesus just burns inside of you. And I think that's what Cassie was alluding to. And then Jeff agrees with you. I don't know if you saw that. He said, I don't think it's wrong to love people with an agenda as long as it's a God agenda. Perhaps we need to pray in the moment. Sorry, it got cut off. So
That's okay.
So yeah, anyway.
All right, let's jump into chapter 8,
Chapter 8.
Summary. Okay, so in chapter 8, Chris opens the chapter with a powerful description of what it looks like to be a secret agent for the kingdom. And I just have to read it because that's just how I am. Okay, this is so good. I can't even. I love this part. Okay, he says, we are God's secret agents disguised as doctors, housewives, mechanics, computer programmers, school teachers, and business managers. We are part of a covert kingdom. We are powerful believers concealed as everyday people strategically assigned to serve society while simultaneously destroying the works of the devil. Yes. Our very lives are a sign and wonder. Not only do we have the message, we also are the message. To know us is to love us. We are the fruit of God's love, the manifestation of his person. That gets me fired up. Yes, that's our identity. Secret agents. Woo! Let's go. Okay, sorry. So he goes on to talk about how Jesus sent us into the world as sheep among wolves, describing how a sheep would be a tasty meal for a wolf. I have never thought of it this way, and I thought it was brilliant. The intention was that the world would get a taste of us, and it would make them ravenous for Jesus. Just screaming the Bible at them isn't going to bring about transformation. They have become Bible intolerant, like a person becomes lactose intolerant. Instead, we need to be enticing enough through living our kingdom life that they cannot resist the meal. Oh, and it just, it fires me up. Okay, and then one more thing. On page 119, I love what he says here. We owe the world an encounter with God himself. When people are exposed to their Creator, they find him enticing, simply irresistible. We need a strategic plan birthed by the Holy Spirit that can bring the kingdom into every realm of society. We have emphasized the innocent dead doves part for decades. While holding on to this, it is time that we also become as wise as serpents. And I love that! Okay, Ashton, what do you think?
Well, I feel like anything I say at this point is not going to feel as powerful.
I'm sorry. This chapter really was lit me up.
No, it did me too, but for different reasons. So one thing you might not know about me is I'm a former teacher, and I taught high schoolers. And one thing that I definitely learned through my relationship with all the high schoolers is that you actually can't do much teaching and equipping and training them at all until they know that you care about them, until they realize that, like, you're a credible person. And so I loved what he said on page 118. He said, I have heard many leaders say things like, people are just not hungry for the truth. What these leaders don't realize is that although we are not called to pound seed into concrete, we are responsible to motivate people to want to learn, receive, and grow so that we can teach, equip, and train them. Mm-hmm. And that I totally 100% agree with. I feel like the first couple weeks of every class that I've ever taught has been just in the relationship building piece, and helping them understand the why behind why they need this information, to motivate them. You know, because you're right. You don't walk into high school English class on a Monday morning saying to yourself, I'm hungry for grammatical analysis. Like, you just don't.
I don't think I've ever said that.
But I have. But
those are differences.
It's my job. If I'm doing my job as the teacher, it's my job to motivate you to want this information, to feel like you need it inside you, to feel like you need to be trained in it. And so I'm just like 100% behind that mentality.
Yeah, totally.
So I agree. This chapter was really good. There were a lot of really great things. The question that we had for you guys, though, although we didn't really get to the back end of it. So cover the back end if you want to know more context for the question.
Yeah.
But the question is, have you ever had a time where your faith or religion isolated you from people? And if so, how?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I said yes, actually. Again, this goes back to my childhood and my upbringing, but my mom and dad were very protective of us as kids, and they were kind of caught up in some religious legalism. If my mom watches this, I'm sure she would agree. She probably will watch it.
Always
Grandparents
awkward when
do.
your mom watches.
And my grandma. They'll probably agree. I mean, they'll probably agree. My family has experienced a lot of freedom and breakthrough from some of the religious legalism that we all kind of came up with. But, yeah, so, like, there were some really, really, really strict rules for us growing up. I mean, things like we did not celebrate Halloween, and, like, on Halloween, my parents would pull us out of school, and they were, like, really, really strict about sleepovers, about movies that we watched, about friends that we hung out with. Like, they were just really, really, really strict. And actually, it was good. It was a good thing that they were so protective and so strict. They really did a very good job of protecting us from some things that I hope to also protect my kids from. But at times, it created a social isolation in ways where people... It wasn't like I could just tell them I was a Christian. They just knew I was a Christian because of the things I wasn't allowed to do. Like, they recognized my faith by the rules I had to follow that they didn't necessarily have to follow. And at times that created isolation where I didn't get invited to do a lot of things that they just assumed I wouldn't be able to do. Which is fine because my mom and dad probably would have said no. But at the same time, like, as a kid who you want to feel, like, socially accepted and, like, to feel like you belong, just getting the invitation to something, like, makes you feel good about yourself. Yeah. So,
yeah.
I don't know. There were times that I felt that. And even into adulthood, there have been times where if somebody knew about my faith, they would apologize for cussing or they would, things like that. When I'm like, oh, well, you caught me on a good day. You didn't hear me slip something. Like, just being honest, every once in a while something comes out. But, like, it's like you don't have to apologize for not being righteous because you haven't been made righteous yet, so it's okay. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, there have been times. What about you, Ashton?
I really can't think of a time, and I don't know if it's just because my brain isn't working or if I don't know. I thought about this for a while too. I was like, there has to be a time when I felt, segregated because of my faith, or I felt like I isolated myself, and I really haven't. But maybe, I don't know, the reason that I reflected on it and realized, like, so I do this kind of weird self-protection thing where I kind of keep my worlds from colliding negatively, so I don't really share. I'm a really authentic and vulnerable person up close, but zoom back, and if you don't know me, like, I actually probably wouldn't give you a lot of information about me. I probably wouldn't even let you know how much of a Christian I was, like, and that's probably a problem for me. But I again, it's all about relationship for me. I don't know, like, the closer you get, the more you'll see those things, and the more I'll allow you to see those things. So I don't know. I just never felt isolated because I just think people didn't know, maybe, or I didn't want them to know. So
maybe you do a really good job of, like, building a relationship before walls of religion and assumptions go up. Because the thing is, a lot of people just assume things about you when they acknowledge that you have some kind of religious or Christian belief system, even if it's not true about you. They just come with preconceived notions. So maybe you just do a really good job of building a relationship before, like, throwing it out there, so that when you do throw it out there, they're like, oh, but you're totally normal.
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea. You'll have to ask them. I don't know. But I just genuinely couldn't think of anything. So it's not a cop-out, I swear. But anyway, okay, so we're over in time. We want to, I was looking at the comments and people were responding, so I wanted to look at that real quick. But then we want to pray over you guys before we head out tonight. Oh, no. It didn't update. Now I got to go to here. Okay. Show them you're genuine and you care. I think that was Brian. Yes, and I am definitely a big proponent of that, as I have explained multiple times. Oh, there's Georgina. Okay. She says, thanks so much. Oh, okay. We're wrapping up. Never mind. We're going to read these later. Because we're off on our comments and because I clicked out of it and clicked back into it. Now it's not tracking. So anyway, we will read it. We will comment to all of you. Thank you so much for participating. We know that it's a Tuesday night. You want to be with your family, and we get that. And we just appreciate your willingness to grow with us in all of this. And Cassie, do you want to pray over him?
Yeah. Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity to have this dialogue. I pray, Lord Jesus, just that every thought, every topic that has crossed our minds or crossed our lips would they would just be things that encourage us and help us to grow. And if anybody is stuck on anything, God, I ask that you would just give them wisdom to bring it to you and that you would help them to discern what they need to know from this, Lord Jesus. Just thank you that we can grow as a community, that there's so much grace as we're all in our journeys to learn, and that there's no judgment in this community. I thank you, Jesus, for the freedom that you've extended to us in this way.
Yeah.
And I just pray blessings over everybody as we go into the next 2 weeks. And just thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Yeah. Amen. Okay, what's coming up? The next book study will be on November 26th. I know this is dangerously close to Thanksgiving, so we apologize. But we're trying to keep it consistent and predictable. So November 26th, chapters 9 through 12, and we will reflect on tonight and see kind of what worked and what didn't, just like we did last time.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll do a few more tweaks, and it'll be fun. But we are halfway through, guys. I'm excited.
Halfway through the book.
Thanks for sticking with us. And for those of you who are watching the replay, thank you for just being with us through this. And please, again, continue to comment. We've enjoyed connecting with you throughout the week on the thread. So it's been fun. All right, guys. Have a wonderful Tuesday night.
And a great rest of your week.
Yes, we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.